Hello everyone, I am Julia, and today we are focusing on a common way to weaken a GMAT argument. Exposing a false dichotomy. If you've ever seen an argument that relies on an assumption that there are only two options, you have probably seen this flaw in action. A false dichotomy happens when an argument claims that there are only two choices, or it rules out one choice and then says that another choice must now be the case, when in fact there are other possibilities that exist. This logical flaw can seriously undermine a conclusion, and the GMAT loves to test for it. If you spot an argument that forces an either-or decision, be on the lookout for a third option that the author did not consider. Let's look at some examples. The original draft of Dr. Yin's pivotal climate study has not been located in any university archive. Therefore, it must have been destroyed. That seems like kind of a jump. The argument assumes that there are only two possibilities. The document is in a university archive or it has been destroyed. I feel like there are a lot of other places a document could potentially be. So one way we could weaken this is by pointing that out. Dr. Yin's personal journals indicate that she mailed many of her original drafts to private donors shortly before retiring. This adds a specific and plausible third place that the draft could go. It could still exist, so it has not been destroyed, but it could be in private hands, not a university archive. That is a way to clearly weaken the original conclusion by exposing that it is based on a false dichotomy and there is actually a third option. Inspectors have informed the high school that 3 of the school's buses need repairs that will take a week to complete. The school has just enough buses to cover all routes. Since there is no practical way to temporarily change the routes so that they can be covered by fewer buses, parents of students on 3 of the routes will have to drive those students to school for a week. This is a classic false dichotomy. The argument says there are only 2 things we can do. Either we can change the bus routes, which we can't because there's no practical way to do it, or parents must drive the students. That is the only way to get from their homes to the school. So, what if public buses on which high school students could safely travel run on routes almost exactly the same as the routes taken by some of the school's buses? Look here, there is another alternative besides the only 2 the author considered. The argument becomes much weaker because it has obviously overlooked the possibility of public transportation. You could do the same thing with students biking to school or students walking to school. Any other way for the students to get from point A to point B that shows that the author has only considered 2 plausible options in a situation where there's probably way more options weakens the conclusion in a situation like this. By presenting another option, we challenge the assumption that the only 2 paths available are those 2 stated in the argument. It does not prove the conclusion wrong, nor does it need to, but it undermines the logic that got us here. The GMAT often tests this flaw in arguments that involve decisions, policy choices, or historical events. So that is when I would be most alert for it. When reviewing critical reasoning questions, watch out for language that implies only 2 choices. Ask what else could be true. Is there any other option? And scan the answer choices for something that introduces a new feasible factor to consider. The new path is often the strongest weakening answer if the logical flaw is a false dichotomy. So, next time you see an argument boxing itself into 2 options, keep your eyes peeled for a third. That is your weakening window. If you have seen this in action, drop a comment with your favorite example of a false dichotomy, and of course, come back for more perfect score GMAT tips. See you next time.